the ability to communicate in Spanish. If we're talking about a welcoming, diverse 21st century city, that's what I'm committed to.
Are you familiar with Peter D?
Yes.
Did you know that the finance director who has handled the majority of the budget and writing the checks and balancing the budget, did you know, Dayne, that was a Woodrow Stanley appointee?
I did. And one thing about these coming appointees, is we're going to win this election tomorrow. It's going to be a clean sweep down there at City Hall.
What about Peter D?
When Peter D put his name on that mailing to all of Flint's residents, trying to electioneer the results in this November 6th voting, that was wrong. That was more than wrong. That was wrong. That was illegal.
That was wrong.
It was, and he lost whatever credibility he had in my mind. He lost at that point because there is no room in Flint City Hall for this kind of activity.
Let me explain to you what Dayne is talking about. Peter D is the finance director. He signs the checks. He okays the spending of the money. What Dayne is upset about is that Don Williamson used city letterhead to mail out thousands of letters talking about the streets and the deficit and the budget. He's saying, Dayne Walling is saying that Don Williamson, just like when some of us believe that he used park workers to, do the park when Patsy Lou was running and she lost, but he had used city workers to fix up the park. What Dayne Walling is saying is that Peter D is the person that have to sign the checks. If Peter D said to Don Williamson, no, I'm not going to sign these illegal spending of checks for campaigning, Dayne Walling is saying that Peter D would have integrity. He would have stood up to his boss and say this is a no-no. You heard it here first on the Eric Mays show. I'm kind of in shock. But Dayne Walling, the Rhodes Scholar, is saying Peter D done messed up. He didn't stand up to his boss and he signed checks and said, okay, I'm going to turn my head to this illegal spending. Boy, that means Dayne Walling ain't, I'm like, oh, man. That's what you're saying, Dayne, ain't it?
That's right. I mean, this election, it is not about these old battles with all of Flint's former mayors. And I'm looking to make Don Williamson one of those former mayors tomorrow. This is going to be about a team of people
Dayne,
who have their skills.
Let me ask you this question. You said, when they talked about Woodrow Stanley, you said you your own man.
Right.
Some people believe that you might not listen to Woodrow Stanley, but you'll listen to Dale and Dan Kildee. They believe that, hey, this guy here might not listen to Woodrow Stanley, but you listen to Dale and Dan Kildee. Some people say you might listen to white folks more than black folks. Since you've been around Flint, who would you think is a black person you might consult with? Will you be listening to who? Is it your own brain? Is it your wife's brain? Is it Dale Kildee's brain? What and where did you come from, and who will you listen to?
I've been talking to a lot of people. I mean, that's how I do things. That's one of the things that people need to know about me is I have very broad interests. I read all sorts of things. I subscribe to everything from Business Week to Vibe magazine and Sports Illustrated. I mean, I take all this stuff in. And that's how you figure out what really needs to be done. You can't have a narrow view of a city like Flint. Because Flint, it may only have 100 and some thousand people, but Flint's a very diverse place. We got people of all walks of life, all ages, different family structures, different networks. I mean, you got to take all of that into account if we want to really make something happen for this whole city.
Will you continue to pave the streets?
Yes.
Who you going to pave them with? You going to get out there and do them yourself?
No, we'll have Department of Transportation, they'll be focused on that.
Ain't that the same people who did it for Williamson?
The Department of Transportation?
The employees.
Yeah, right. The only person you get to change is the director of the department. And we're talking about...
And the mayor.
Right, you're talking about 1,100 city workers, and the mayor gets to appoint 21 of those. So you got the mayor and 21 positions. That's 22.
And they tell the people which streets to go pay.
Then you got the 1,078 other people who were out there. They're all in place.
So you won't have to go pave the streets.
I don't plan on personally paving too many. You know, I don't,
You
know what I'm saying?
Did Don pave some himself?
I mean, I might fill a couple potholes every now and again just to mix it up. But
you might. Will you put a hard hat on?
You know, if I have to. I'm not gonna wear it as a fashion statement.
I'm just being sarcastic. Don didn't pave the street. The city employees paved the street. What I want from you on the Eric May Show is a commitment that if you see a bad street, you'll point it out and tell them to go pave it.
That's right. Yes.
And paint the lines and stripes and everything.
And this is what I'm talking about with that city service number, because it's not all gonna have to be about me driving over that street. You know. You can call from your mother's house and say, you know, I just drove here or there, and we need some attention on that.
And you will pay attention to that.
Right.
So streets will continue to be paid attention to. What happened, Dayne, from me watching this thing, when Ed Kurtz was here, he was focusing on the budget. He had to get the deficit in line, and he wasn't interested in cutting weeds and knocking down houses and paving streets. His job was to be the financial emergency manager, get the budget in line, and then when we got the budget in line, turn it over to Williamson. When Williamson took over, he had a chunk of money there, and he was able to point to the streets. You'll continue to pave streets. Let's go to another area. Will you continue to knock down houses?
Yes. 6 out of 7 of those are already being paid for by the county land bank.
Let's explain that in a little more detail. Dan Kildee, who is a friend of yours.
County treasurer.
He's
endorsed me, right.
Him and Dale Kildee.
Right.
He controls the land bank. On the debate, Don called Dan Kildee and the land bank the biggest slumlord in the city. I thought that was wrong. What happens when people don't pay their taxes, Dan Kildee and the land banks get the houses.
Yeah, they have to take the houses.
Right, by law.
Right.
And if some of the houses need torn down, then what Dan Kildee and the land bank does, they contract out with the city. They pay the city $6,000 a house to tear down their house. So when people see houses being torn down, they don't know it's Dan Kildee and the land bank paying the city. They see a city truck and they think it's Don Williamson tearing down a house. It's really Dan Kildee and the land bank tearing down a lot of houses in the city of Flint. Is that what you understand?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's, I mean, people need to know that these acquisitions that the land bank makes are not by choice. I mean, this is the law, and it works relatively quickly. I mean, you might remember 5-10 years ago, these kind of homes that were being foreclosed on 8 or 10 years before anybody could do anything.
That's correct.
Right. So
Dan Kildee has become a hero for tearing down houses.
And there's still a lot of work that land bank has to do. And we can't think that's the solution to everything, but we can do more to work with them so that
we ain't got to call them slumlords.
I don't think that this is that old battles I've been talking a lot about these last few days, that if you're a person who believes that Flint's going to get better by fighting these old battles of the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and going back to the Rutherfords and all this, that is not going to move this city forward.
We moving into the 21st century.
We're trying to get there.
I'm 49 years old. I'm going to be dead in a minute. I ain't got time for that. So we've covered streets. We've covered tearing down houses. That's what they say Don is famous for. That's going to continue. Let's get to the police department, and from there we'll go to jobs, crime. Will you try to keep the jail open?
Yes, and that's the city council proposed a way to keep that open long term, where it